20 agonizing days have passed for Nancy Guthrie's loved ones, leaving a desperate public begging for clues about her sudden, terrifying disappearance. Detectives are frantically tearing through clues to identify a culprit, yet their entire investigation tragically hinges on one single piece of front porch footage. As federal agents scrutinize Nancy Guthrie's ultimate call logs, zeroing in on her absolute final conversation, before vanishing, a stunned investigator froze completely. 32 long days into the massive hunt for Nancy Guthrie, exhausted detectives continue sifting through countless incoming public leads. Could the ultimate smoking gun actually be the perpetrator's mobile device? That specific dial not only shifted the entire case trajectory, but directly implicated a person everyone desperately hoped was entirely innocent. A final farewell absolutely no one anticipated. Before uncovering the detective's discoveries, you must grasp a vital detail that nearly all mainstream media covering this mystery have entirely managed to miss. Nancy Guthrie never simply evaporated without a trace. Her disappearance fits a precise chronological window, starting on a seemingly normal weekend night and concluding with 4 hours of complete, baffling dead air. During the evening of Saturday, January 31st, 2026, Nancy requested a rideshare exactly at 5:32 from her residence, situated within Tucson, Arizona's Catalina Foothills district. She traveled just 4 miles down the road to her oldest child, Annie's place, for supper and board games, with absolutely nothing feeling out of the ordinary. Absolutely zero red flags appeared. Everyone agreed this represented the exact type of routine gathering that relatives casually enjoy countless times without any second thoughts. Finally, local law enforcement authorities had begun drafting an initial chronological sequence detailing exactly how Nancy seemingly vanished. Authorities claim a relative drove her back after the weekend meal, dropping her off by 9:48 at night before her automated garage portal firmly shut at exactly 9:50. Later at 1:47 in the morning, the front porch lens went dark. Following the meal's conclusion between 9:30 and 9:45, she had secured transport back. Local County Sheriff Chris Nanos recently verified to the New York Times how her escort guaranteed she entered the residence securely prior to driving off into the night. Security tracking pinpoints everything precisely. The entry bay lifted at 9:48 in the evening and sealed shut by 9:50, leaving Nancy indoors before dead silence hit. But there is a huge twist. An unexplained 4-hour void exists connecting the exact second that automated gate lowered to the initial red flag, signaling a terrible tragedy had occurred. At 1:47 on the morning of February 1st, Nancy's smart entry lens suddenly lost power, leading right up to 2:12. Security sensors detected a shadowy shape lurking outside the property, and then at 2:28, her implanted heart device ceased sending crucial medical data to her mobile tracking software. Authorities discovered her mobile device abandoned indoors the following morning, alongside her purse vehicle fob and vital cardiovascular prescriptions. Once she stepped indoors, she never dialed a single soul, sent 0 messages, and absolutely refused to signal for any emergency assistance whatsoever. Regardless of what nightmare unfolded internally across those 4 agonizing hours, Nancy Guthrie confronted the terrifying ordeal entirely by herself. By 2:28 before dawn, her very pulse had faded into silence, which brings us to the truly bizarre turning point of this mystery. Authorities shared with NBC News their theory that Nancy's internal medical tracker severed its software link near 2 in the morning that Sunday, potentially isolating the exact moment she departed. At 84 years of age, she struggled with movement and required vital prescriptions. Yet the ultimate dialed contact federal experts extracted from Nancy's mobile was not linked to an unknown outsider. Instead, the digital trail circled right back to an individual who actually shared a meal inside her residence merely a short while prior to her vanishing act. The terrifying secrets hidden within those cellular logs regarding the exact window between the conversation and her heart monitor failing instantly blew this entire case wide open. Hit that subscribe button if you are new here as we expose the gritty details major networks actively ignore. And believe me, this nightmare is nowhere near a resolution. Her daughter's husband became the instant prime target, with online sleuths finalizing their guilty verdict before 7 days had even passed, plastering his identity across the web almost immediately. Digital platforms erupted into a frenzy of wild speculation, harsh blame, and complete lies that outpaced truth seekers entirely, yet one crucial element remains fiercely ignored by everyone. In reality, the genuine portrait of this suspect's daily existence completely contradicted the sinister monster that internet vigilantes were aggressively trying to construct. Tommaso Tioni, the husband in question, wed Nancy's oldest child, Annie, back during September of 2006, maintaining his residence in Tucson continually from that point onward. Spanning more than 15 years, he built a solid career teaching advanced placement biology alongside middle school science classes at the respected Basis Oro Valley Academy. Beyond academic walls, he slapped the bass for a regional indie music group named Early Black, penned foreign language versus observed reptiles, and crafted fresh noodles completely by hand. To commemorate their 10th marital milestone online, Annie publicly praised her partner as the absolute most gorgeous, brilliant, deeply caring, gifted, and wildly funny human she had ever encountered. Zach Lind, a close pal and musician for Jimmy Eat World, openly defended the couple as incredible individuals and devoted guardians who showed immense daily affection and support toward Nancy. During the holiday season of 2025, barely a month prior to going missing, the matriarch shared a cheerful internet picture featuring the whole clan rocking coordinated sleepwear. Tommaso stood directly adjacent to her frame, cradling their pet, while she smiled brightly, yet shockingly, he was the exact driver who transported her back on that fateful evening. He remains the absolute final verified individual to witness her breathing. Fully understanding every single architectural detail regarding the interior of her property, understanding exactly where security lenses pointed combined with federal agents linking those cellular logs straight to the ominous timeframe following his exit fueled an unstoppable avalanche of harsh, public finger-pointing. Media personality Ashley Banfield announced across her audio show how a reliable police insider officially pegged him as the leading person of interest despite intense pushback on satellite radio. The reporter stood her ground, fiercely arguing that local authorities clamped down incredibly hard on information leaks, immediately following her explosive broadcasting revelations. She then dropped a truly unforgettable quote, stating that facing heavy defensive fire usually means you are stepping directly on top of the ultimate bullseye. Detectives currently suspect the daughter's husband could be their main target, which are the exact phrases used pointing to him as the primary focus in this chaotic criminal hunt right now. Federal operatives visibly swarmed the couple's private residence on the 7th of February, locking the area down completely. They spent nearly 3 hours snapping bright photos indoors before uniformed personnel walked out wearing latex protection to haul away seized materials, ultimately towing the daughter's vehicle away. Wild rumors about a $50 million Mexican cartel casino debt exploded overnight, completely wrecking reputations before top news sources proved it was entirely fake. Yet the devastation lingered forever. Everything shifted on February 16th when Sheriff Nanos faced the press flashes, delivering an absolutely uncompromising official declaration. Every Guthrie relative, including siblings and partners, was completely eliminated from the suspect list. Branding those wild rumors as purely vicious and completely false, he stressed that the relatives were absolutely ruled out early on, being 100% compliant and officially exonerated. Yet that notorious call log sparking this entire nightmare remained locked in an evidence locker. Meanwhile, the very location it traced back to whispered an entirely different chilling narrative. It revealed massive police blunders so catastrophic that detectives ultimately faced severe backlash for their sheer incompetence. This massive manhunt practically imploded before anyone even hit the actual streets. Here lies the darkest untold secret. Tracking Nancy Guthrie wasn't merely hindered by a ghost-like kidnapper and dead ends. During those crucial first 7 days, the operation fundamentally sabotaged itself. Reaching NY's residence on February 2nd, Pima County deputies immediately sensed an incredibly disturbing, chaotic atmosphere. Crimson splatters staining the entryway were ultimately matched to NY via genetic profiling. Meanwhile, her mobile device and purse remained perfectly undisturbed indoors alongside glaring evidence of a violent break-in. Tiny shards littered the main doorway while the security lens outside clearly showed signs of intentional malicious sabotage. Sheriff Nanos firmly declared she never left, voluntarily emphasizing detectives were convinced attackers dragged her from the property. Consequently, federal agents from the FBI swooped in to assist instantly. During its climax, the massive hunt utilized roughly 400 agents working endlessly. It produced over 50,000 leads from the public. However, there was a massive underlying problem. Off-camera disastrous missteps were quickly stacking up in the shadows. Authorities shockingly abandoned the secured property far too early. Nanos openly confessed this failure. Detectives returned days afterward, desperately gathering crucial clues they completely overlooked during their initial sweep. An overhead surveillance lens went entirely unnoticed by officers during their crucial, very first property inspection. Authorities originally claimed the front porch video was completely lost permanently, simply because Nancy lacked an active premium Nest membership. Yet FBI tech experts eventually extracted those exact frames from hidden server archives, a basic step local cops failed to execute initially. Everyone heavily scrutinized why officials magically produced those missing clips right after fiercely insisting absolutely nothing existed. Things then spiraled into a much bigger disaster. The region's elite aviation tracking expert faced punishment over a nasty feud with Nanos getting demoted to basic traffic duty long before this tragedy even occurred. Their top seasoned wilderness recovery officer was also bumped to neighborhood duty in late 2025, leaving behind a completely vacant position. Essentially, both highly specialized veterans, perfectly equipped to handle this exact missing person crisis, were entirely absent from the force. Shockingly enough, authorities captured and later freed upward of 20 different individuals throughout the chaotic duration of this entire manhunt. Carlos Palazuelos got intercepted at a highway roadblock roughly 60 miles below Tucson, only to be totally let go the very next morning. He informed journalists he prayed cops caught the actual predator, asserting his absolute innocence. Meanwhile, heavily armed SWAT teams dragged Luke Anthony Daly and his 77-year-old mom from a house 2 miles away. Detained endlessly, he walked free as his lawyer fiercely denied any ties to the crime. Internet sleuths viciously zeroed in on Dominic Evans, a primary educator and local drummer, falsely arguing his physique perfectly mirrored the shadowy trespasser captured on video. Speaking to the New York Times, he expressed deep disgust that internet trolls exploited his identity for cheap thrills while thoroughly destroying blameless lives. All this time, their true predator lurked as a blurry shadow. The FBI published 4 monochrome pictures revealing a masked, gloved man roughly 5'9" to 5'10". He sported an obvious weapon strap and carried a highly specific dark Ozark trail bag available only at Walmart. Authorities estimated him standing 5'9" to 5'11". Weighing nearly 230 pounds, the intruder wore massive boots, likely a size 12 judging by floor patterns. Furthermore, his dark tactical wardrobe offered up several very fascinating hints. His facial covering featured incredibly rare threading patterns. This mysterious phantom clearly planned everything perfectly. The guy fully understood blind spots. He arrived heavily equipped for this specific brutal mission. However, things suddenly took an incredibly bizarre dark turn. That terrifying extortion message he delivered was never physically mailed or spoken over a line, but entirely transmitted via digital inbox. It held secrets so chillingly accurate that seasoned FBI agents openly admitted they had basically never witnessed anything quite this sinister. What genuinely terrified them was a chilling fact linking straight to NY's final conversation. A $6 million crypto ultimatum totally flipped the narrative completely, bypassing standard criminal communication methods. Digital threats hit CBS partner KLD-TV, another local broadcaster, and TMZ, arriving 12 hours apart. Every single message grew angrier, leaking terrifyingly intimate crime scene knowledge. TMZ creator Harvey Levin actually broadcasted the most comprehensive breakdown of that terrifying initial extortion message. Looking incredibly disturbed while reporting live, Levin explained how the document brutally outlined the exact things these vicious captors demanded. It clearly listed the gruesome punishments awaiting failure structuring these intense threats around a rapidly approaching deadly set of ticking clocks. This message extorted $6 million in cryptocurrency, attaching a fully legitimate traceable digital transfer destination. It established 2 distinct cutoff times. The initial limit struck at 5 p.m. on Thursday, February 5th, focusing strictly on that financial payload. A second clock expired at 5 p.m. on Monday, February 9th, threatening something far deadlier. But here lies the horrifying twist. The true nightmare hidden within that message had absolutely nothing to do with cash. It was the Phantom's impossible insider knowledge. This digital letter leaked highly classified secrets, pinpointing exactly where cops discovered NY's smart wristband. It casually mentioned an obscure outdoor security bulb and perfectly described Nancy's exact outfit during her terrifying abduction. Furthermore, the writing style appeared chillingly sophisticated, flawless, and deeply calculated. An ex-federal investigator caught a glaring red flag right away. The extortionist typed out the letters USD, something typical Americans absolutely never do during casual chats. This single detail suggested 2 chilling possibilities: the abductor originated from overseas, or a calculating mastermind was intentionally planting fake linguistic clues to throw cops off. Around the 18th of February, a significantly more disturbing message arrived, packed with horrifying details that made the initial threat seem incredibly tame. The perpetrators requested their cash through an incredibly complex digital coin system, totally bypassing standard Bitcoin, and they utilized a completely fresh digital wallet today. These crooks demanded untraceable alternative coins rather than typical Bitcoin, explicitly mentioning how the relentless media broadcasts had directly provoked their increased asking price. They were clearly monitoring the coverage. To make things even crazier, an entirely different person emailed authorities claiming they possessed crucial details about the abductors demanding 1 single Bitcoin, valued around $70,000 in exchange. Journalists quickly noted a massive shift in writing style, practically proving this informant had zero connection to the primary suspects right before a completely bogus extortion attempt materialized. Authorities bagged a 42-year-old California resident named Derek Kella right after he boldly texted the victim's frantic family directly. He arrogantly asked if the cryptocurrency was ready while awaiting the transfer, but federal agents swiftly tracked those messages straight back to his personal email address. Prosecutors slapped him with severe federal extortion charges for crossing state lines even though he possessed absolutely zero ties to the real abduction plot. The guy just wanted a quick payday, but as the true ultimatums expired, the real culprits vanished completely without receiving a single dime. A prominent cable news intelligence expert evaluated this terrifying radio silence and proposed a theory that chilled everyone. The incident likely started as a simple burglary gone horribly wrong, forcing desperate criminals to pivot into a hostage situation once they realized their escape routes had completely evaporated. Because the extortion arrived electronically, detectives lacked physical stationery or penmanship to scrutinize, yet they secured one crucial clue. Investigators discovered a solitary dark mitt lying in a pasture 2 miles away from the residence, and the microscopic clues hidden inside would soon turn the entire forensic strategy upside down. They pulled an entirely anonymous genetic profile from the fabric, meaning that if justice ever prevails here, it will depend entirely on those laboratory results that everyone seems to ignore. Biological clues gathered during the search for this missing mother represent both the brightest ray of hope and the absolute biggest headache for the exhausted detectives on the case. Laboratory technicians positively identified the crimson stains outside the doorway as belonging to the victim, erasing any lingering doubts about whether a brutal assault occurred on the property. While combing the adjacent neighborhoods, search teams eventually collected roughly 16 different hand coverings. Helpful citizens participating in the neighborhood sweep had accidentally dropped the vast majority of these. However, a solitary dark mitten discovered 2 miles away perfectly resembled the attire worn by the disguised intruder captured on the security cameras. Federal scientists pulled an unidentified male genetic sequence from the material, but the National Offender Registry turned up completely empty. Authorities publicly confirmed they cannot identify the biological material lifted off the clothing item abandoned alongside the highway near the crime scene. Investigators fed the sequence into the federal system, yet it completely failed to hit against any of the roughly 22 million on criminal records on Venezuela. The perpetrator clearly lacked prior serious felony convictions, yet the mystery suddenly took a truly bizarre turn. The genetic material on the clothing completely contradicted the biological evidence discovered at the residence, meaning they were hunting two entirely distinct suspects. This discrepancy sparked a terrifying theory. A whole team of intruders might have orchestrated the horrific nightmare unfolding inside that residence. Things grew incredibly messy inside the actual residence, where nearly all biological traces belonged to folks who frequently visited the property. Anyway. Relatives, gardeners, and repairmen accounted for most hits, though a few swabs featured scrambled blueprints from several people. This messy overlap confused normal testing protocols, forcing authorities to ship everything to a specialized Florida facility instead of utilizing elite federal resources. A retired law enforcement executive brutally criticized this move, arguing that bypassing the federal laboratories was an absolutely catastrophic tactical error from the start. An expert academic from Arizona State University analyzed these exact figures, delivering a chillingly calm assessment that keeps detectives awake late into the night. She pointed out that 90% of the mixture belonged to the victim, leaving a tiny 10% fraction for the perpetrator, making isolation nearly impossible. This terrible percentage imbalance is exactly what dictates if a mystery reaches a conclusion or rots in unsolved archives. Surprisingly, the leading genealogical expert at a prominent private research company actually threw the desperate task force a much-needed lifeline. Should traditional matching completely bomb on that tiny 10% slice, technicians could potentially rebuild a workable family tree from the remaining traces. This revolutionary science caught the infamous California serial murderer after decades of police chasing nothing but cold trails. A leading researcher from the University of New Haven took the theory further, insisting that a multi-person ambush requires leaving behind significantly more physical clues. Detectives need to hunt for microscopic hairs or clothing threads, since these physical remnants survive much longer than fragile bodily fluids, requiring examiners to think outside the box. But there is a massive problem. While technicians continuously test those tiny fragments, down south precious hours are just slipping away. The disguised intruder sporting a cheap retail backpack remains completely unidentified, just like the initial cellular log that sparked this absolute nightmare. That final dial establishing the timeline and handing authorities a concrete target remains a total secret. We still have zero public answers, but the single individual carrying the heaviest emotional burden was preparing a heartbreaking speech that would soon freeze the nation. A grieving child was about to break the internet with her weeping, especially since this famous anchor had spent decades reporting on everyone else's tragedies. Countless viewers woke up daily to watch her solemnly broadcast someone else's nightmare. But by the 4th of February, 2026, she became the tragic headline herself. Imagine abandoning your massive gig, hosting the 2026 Winter Olympics, opening ceremonies completely paralyzed by not knowing if your mother is breathing. She dropped every single career obligation, dedicating her entire existence to tracking down whoever snatched Nancy. By the 4th of February, the world watched her stand shoulder to shoulder with Annie and Cameron. They released an emotional broadcast begging the kidnappers for any sign of life. We demand absolute, undeniable proof that she is still breathing and currently in your custody. We are perfectly willing to negotiate with you right now. Just pick up the phone and contact our family immediately. Just communicate with us, she pleaded, barely keeping her composure. We will hear whatever you have to say. Contact us. Exactly 3 days later, arriving on the 7th of February, those same 3 children gripped each other's hands during another public plea, clearly reacting to the captor's financial extortion. Your instructions came through loud and clear, the trio announced. Now we are desperately pleading with you to bring her back safely. Name your price because her life means everything to us. However, the situation quickly took a deeply bizarre and heartbreaking turn. Their chilling address on the 24th of February completely shattered the tone of every previous broadcast. Savannah offered a massive $1 million bounty, finally verbalizing the horrific reality the public had been silently dreading all along. Each agonizingly slow tick of the clock brings unending torture, she confessed. We are desperately holding on to hope for divine intervention. Our faith tells us she could walk through that door. Yet we realize the darkest outcome might be true. She could already be dancing among the angels alongside her beloved parents in eternal paradise. Concurrently, the relatives gifted $500,000 to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children. Meanwhile, Annie Guthrie handled this nightmare completely differently. Although visible in those group broadcasts, she refused to lead the conversation. Not a single solo press conference was ever granted. She completely refused to acknowledge the dark rumors surrounding her spouse. The public interpreted her quietness through various lenses: a calculated courtroom defense, unwavering marital devotion, or perhaps just the sheer agony of shielding your partner while questioning if your own mom is even alive. By the 2nd of March, hitting day 30, Savannah, Annie, and Tommaso locked arms approaching the massive golden floral memorial outside the residence. Microphones easily picked up their heartbreaking cries. They dropped off a deeply personal letter. Mother, our souls ache for your presence. We are completely shattered, wandering through the burned wreckage of our lives. Even trapped inside this terrifying black hole of the unknown, our absolute devotion to you remains fiercely illuminated. We adore you, our greatest confidant. Following a network appearance on the 4th of February, President Donald Trump dialed Savannah directly to provide federal backing. Shortly after that private chat, the political leader publicly addressed the massive hunt for Nancy, promising full national agency support to crack the mystery. Savannah subsequently clarified online that the $1 million bounty was available in cold hard cash, guaranteeing absolute secrecy for any informants. These relatives exhausted every conceivable option. They practically crawled on national television dangling enormous financial incentives. Turning their private devastation into a highly publicized spectacle yielded nothing. Pushing into month number 2, the biggest puzzle piece stayed frozen at square one. That ultimate telephonic connection, the exact communication that federal profilers relentlessly scrutinized, which eventually pointed toward an unmistakable identity, an undeniable sequence of events in a mysterious 4-hour void lacking any logical explanation. The true nature of that chat, the voice on the line, the spoken dialogue, and the subsequent domino effect of those dark hours remain the ultimate holy grail for these working detectives. Authorities already securely possess the missing matriarch's mobile device. Her internal heart monitor metrics sit securely in evidence. Digital call logs are filed. Biological traces from the discarded glove await testing down south. That disguised ghost carrying the retail bag remains a total enigma. Most tragically, the beloved mother remains missing. You've now witnessed the inner workings of this terrifying saga. So considering all the uncovered secrets and phone log revelations, are the authorities finally narrowing the gap? Or did a crucial clue slip through the cracks? Leave your personal theories down below. I review every single submission. Plus, if these intense investigative breakdowns keep you hooked, you already know exactly what to do next. From the story conveyed in the content, one powerful lesson stands out. True strength is not measured by power, but by compassion, resilience, and the choices we make when facing adversity. Life often places us in difficult situations where fear, doubt, or pain can easily take over. Yet it is in these very moments that our character is revealed. Choosing kindness when it's easier to be harsh, staying hopeful when everything feels uncertain, and continuing forward despite setbacks, these are the actions that define who we truly are. The story reminds us that every individual carries unseen struggles. A simple act of understanding or support can change someone's path in ways we may never fully realize. It also teaches that growth does not come from avoiding hardship, but from learning through it and rising stronger each time. In a world that can sometimes feel overwhelming, we all have the ability to be a source of light. By holding on to empathy, courage, and integrity, we not only improve our own lives, but also inspire others to do the same. Ultimately, the message is clear: even the smallest positive choice can create a ripple effect of change.